Hi there! Today we are going to learn how to create your surrealism project using Photoshop. First, a little background about surrealism. It was an art movement that began in the early 1920s in France. Surrealist works of art feature the element of surprise, unexpected juxtapositions, and humor. And really the artists were trying to delve into the subconscious. So this is a great project for creativity. If you found the mixed up animals to be limiting, this is going to be a great project for you because you really get to get creative and even a little crazy. So let's look at some examples of some famous pieces of surrealism. This is probably the most famous, The Melting Clocks by Salvador Dali. Melting an object that obviously wouldn't normally be melted, very surrealism work. A floating castle on a rock, obviously, having the rock floating within the sky, very abnormal, not something you would normally see. That's all surrealism. The idea of repeating something over and over again that's out of the norm. In this case, you see this businessman being repeated. It almost looks as if it was raining the businessman. Using butterflies as the sails of this ship. And the positioning of the cruise ship obviously looks as if it's going to fly into the bridge. All surrealist concepts. So that was famous works of art. We have a couple kid examples using themselves in the work of art. You can see the student put himself throughout this piece. In this one, the juxtaposition of a little student inside of this teacher's pocket. Here we're playing with the repositioning of facial features. Again, playing with the size of shrinking yourself and making it look like the marker is as big as you. And then again, we have a little guy coming out of a cereal box. So very interesting kind of second glance projects where you're questioning, oh, did I really just see that? What's going on here? So the hardest part about this project is coming up with ideas because you really want to make them interesting and thought-provoking. Some words to help you think like a surrealist. You have the juxtaposition, anything scary, strange, dreamlike, science fiction, surprising. All these things are really what you're aiming to get when you're creating these pieces. And as far as your project requirements go, I would like to see 3 completed projects, obviously that you will create in Photoshop, using multiple tools and effects on each. And then when you're finished, I want all 3 saved as JPEGs and uploaded to your Haiku Photoshop portfolio. So I'm going to go over and maybe review a couple tools that you could use for this project. And as I'm thinking of something I want to do, I want, something that I wouldn't normally see or something interesting that intrigues me. So I want to do something with the desert and perhaps water and a water animal. I'm going to just Control T, shrink that desert photo that I just found, position it, hit enter, and I want to do a glass of water, I think. So let's do a glass of water. I'm going to the actual page so I can get the largest image. Shrink it to the size I need. Now, a quick way, if you have a solid color surrounding your image, instead of using your lasso tool, is to use your magic wand tool. So I held down the quick selection tool and I'm just going to click magic wand tool, and I'm going to click on the white, and in this case it's selecting all of the areas that are close to that white. So what I want to do is say, let's make the tolerance lower, so it's only going to get the pure white. And now I have just the pure white surrounding areas selected, and I can go ahead and hit delete to get rid of it. Now we're looking at a cup of water, but it does in fact look like it's just kind of sitting. It looks obviously cut out, right? So something I want to show you is some of our blending techniques. You can click on, I clicked on one and now I'm just hitting the up arrow to go through lots of them. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. What you see is it kind of is giving you options of how it can blend in with the background. And that linear, I think I'm going to use this linear burn blend. That way it's still transparent, but I can see the cup. And from here, I think I want to put a shark in my cup. Again, playing with the size. Obviously a shark wouldn't normally fit in a cup, or at least a normal size shark wouldn't fit in a cup. But let's see. This guy looks scary. Let's use him. Go ahead and copy it. I'm going to go ahead and paste. And Control T to resize. Once I get it too close to the size I want, then I want to remove that blue around the shark. Now you can see I could use the wand tool. I could even raise the tolerance so it selects more of that tone, and that could work. I can go ahead and hit delete and get rid of it. It might be a little messy in some areas, but if I get the bulk of it, now I could go back with my lasso tool and just cut out the parts that had too many colors for it to detect. So just gonna go ahead, grab all this water area, hit delete. And then if I wanted to, fix this tail area or do anything else, I could go ahead and easily do that. Hit delete to what I wanted. Alright, so now I'm going to resize my shark a bit. Get him at least to the point where he'd fit in that water area. Remember, Control++ to zoom in when you want to. When I hit Control T and right click, I have the warp option or perspective. So, if eventually he's going to be in water, I might kind of want to warp him so it looks like there's water in front of him, which I'll be adding in a second. And if he's floating, maybe I want to add a shadow. So if you go to the bottom of your layers palette, this FX stands for effects. And you have lots of different effects. I'm going to hit drop shadow. Here's a list of lots of different options I could do right now. So if I want to give him a shadow, let's go ahead and make my shadow. See how the shadow is coming down from him? I can change the angle of where the sun would be. I could bring up the distance some more. I could make it a little fuzzier so it looks more realistic. And I could make the opacity lighter and darker as I see fit. So let's just deal with that for now. And I'm going to go ahead and add a new layer. I'm going to add some blue to the water that he should be in, just to make it look a little more realistic, or that he's in actual water. So I'm going to use my lasso tool. Remember, I just selected a new layer. And I'm creating the water shape I want. All I have to do is lasso that area out. Stay within this glass. When I get the area, I can fill it with blue. So if I double click on my swatch, find a blue I want, and then paint bucket on my new layer. Now we have a nice blue water area. Obviously, water is not opaque, so let's drop the opacity a bunch. So if I zoom out, now it looks a little more realistic that that could be water. Maybe you want to make the shark a little more obvious. I could play with the contrast if that was the case. Let's go up to Image, Adjustments. Play with the curves or brightness and contrast. They both kind of do the same thing. I could darken it or lighten it. Let's bring the contrast up more. That way you can see the shadows on his mouth a little better. And if that water is just looking a little too severe or I didn't make a perfect circle, don't be afraid to use your eraser tool. Make sure your hardness is all the way to 0. Play with your opacity. Make sure you're on the right layer. And you can just start playing with blending the edges a little bit so it doesn't look like you just did a straight line. Don't be afraid to play with the different levels of your opacity to make it look more realistic. This is a good way to erase because rarely do you want a sharp erase line. And obviously do it to any other place you want. So now we're working with somewhat of a quick surrealist piece, and this is something that you should try to emulate. Think of something very creative and, you know, diving into your subconscious. Maybe you had a crazy dream and you would like to in some way illustrate that. This would be a great way to do so, and I can't wait to see your pieces. Thanks.